Hello, my name is Ankita, and today we are going to build and deploy a complete AI agent, one that can think, analyze, and act like a senior software engineer. Now imagine this. What if you had an AI agent that's available 24/7 to review your code, give feedback, catch bugs, and help you ship faster? That's exactly what we are going to build today. A AI agent code reviewer. And this is part 1 of my AI agent series where we will be bringing real decision-making agents to life. Not just simple chatbots, but one that can plan, react, and work intelligently. We will be using Next.js 15 alongside React 19, and we will be using Convex, which is an open source reactive backend for all our agentic workflows and agents. OpenAI for our intelligence layer, Tailwind CSS 4 alongside Shadcn UI for our beautiful user experience, alongside TypeScript and Zod to make sure every piece of AI input and output are type safe, validated, and reliable. And trust me, Convex is the perfect partner for building serious AI agents, and you will learn exactly why in this specific video. If you actually want to build real autonomous AI agents, then you are in the right place. And make sure to subscribe to my channel so you get notified for future videos in this AI agent series. So what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Thanks for checking out this specific video. If you are interested in following along and getting all the links, the code, and everything that I'm sharing as part of resources to build and deploy your own AI agent, then definitely check the link in the description below and download the cheat sheet with everything that you need to know to build and deploy a AI coding agent. Let's take a look at a demo of the app that we are building, which is our code review AI agent. Now we have a list of files in the project file section. If you select on any file, then you will also be able to view that file as well. All these files are essentially being pulled from your local Git system, so you can ask for code review whenever you want, even before you create a pull request. So this is the file content of each of these files. So when you click on it, as you can see, we show the selected state and see the file as well. Now let's say we go ahead and hit review file. When we press the button review file, then AI is going to kick in, Convex agent is going to kick in, and it's going to review our code. And you can see the feedback being displayed here. Now a bunch of them are just suggestions that we could use, and you can click on it to basically see the feedback as well. Now, if you want to design and click on every single line and design specific feedback or change the UI for it, then please go for it. This is a simplistic demo that I wanted to show so you can learn how to build and deploy an AI agent. So for example, as you can see, this is all the feedback that we got. Implement error handling for the use query hook, which is a very valid point because we don't have any error handling yet for the use query hook. The AI agent is going to give you a detailed analysis of the code based on security vulnerabilities, code style, and performance optimization. Now you can easily tweak the prompt to make it for anything else. For example, like we see here, we have code quality, best practices, potential improvements. You could also tweak it to give exactly the feedback that you need for your application or in general your company as well. Now let's talk about what AI agents actually are, how are they different from automations, and when would you actually use them. The simplest way to think about an AI agent is that it's like a smart minion. You give this minion a goal, maybe some memory, and a few tools, and it's going to go off and do the work for you. Now, unlike a chatbot where you send a text and it replies with a text, an AI agent can think, decide, and act. And the thinking part and the deciding part on its own is where it differentiates from other things. AI agent can hold context, follow up, call APIs, and adapt based on what it's seeing, all without hard coding every single step. Now, how is it different from traditional automation? Because if you think of something like Zapier, where you can automate a bunch of your tasks, or even like cron jobs, where you could automate and get a script to run at a specific time period. The main difference is that automations are rule-based. When this happens, do that. They're great for repetitive, predictable flows. But AI agents are different. They shine when the task is more open-ended, messy, or decision-heavy. For example, in our case, the code review. Whenever we want to review code and point out subtle bugs, give more personalized advice or feedback, then in that case, you would use AI agents. or even adapting how they help based on who's asking, you would use AI agents for that. Automations won't be able to do this type of work. The other question you may have is, well, if you just go to chatgpt.com, you can just ask ChatGPT, and ChatGPT also feels like quite open-ended and it's gonna do the same thing. Well, like I said, because AI agents build on top of context, memory, it will call APIs and so on, it has access to a bunch of different tools. And you can sort of think of that if this is an AI agent, then we're going to give it context, we're going to give it memory, we're going to give it access to APIs, but also we can give it access to a bunch of tools that it can use to, let's say, search the web and so on as well. So all of this makes AI agents special. So here's my question for you. Now that you know the difference between what automations are versus agents, where would you use AI agents and so on, what kind of agent would you like to build? Please drop an idea in the comments below. Let's have a discussion about it. It could be something very simple or something ambitious. I would love to hear what you would create. Now, for example, Convex is the open source reactive database for application developers. It is fully open source, so it's really freaking awesome. And it is a reactive database, which means that whenever you update a row, remove a row, add a row, and so on in the Convex database, it is automatically going to remove that from your front end because of the provider that it comes with. It's fully type safe, and these are a few reasons I also think Convex is really useful for us, especially when we're building AI agents. It's fully type safe, so whenever you update a type and update a row type or anything like that in your database, then your UI is automatically going to have updated types. So you're never going to be in a spot where your backend is not synced with your front end, which is really cool. And like I mentioned, it's fully open source. And lastly, and more importantly, it is really ideal for AI agents because of a bunch of different packages and components that it provides us. For example, Convex provides us agents as well as workflows that we'll take a look at. That makes it really seamless for us to use and build AI and AI agents. So let's bootstrap our application. First of all, let's just head over to the documentation for Convex. And they have a bunch of quick start guides for a bunch of different front-end tooling that you like. We're going to go with Next.js because that's the framework we're going to use to build our application. The first step is to copy this. This is going to create a Next.js app called as My App. We don't want that. We want to call something like AI Agent Code Review. So let's do that. So let's copy this. Head over to the terminal and paste it. And this is where you can press enter and give it an app name. So here we're going to call AI Agent Code Review. And let's just go with all the defaults that they have over here. It's going to install the dependencies and dev dependencies for us to bootstrap our project. We need to cd into it and then npm install convex. So let's just go ahead and copy this command and cd into the directory that we just created and npm install convex. And this is what's needed for us to use the convex package and the client and server library as well. Then we are going to copy this command. This is going to set up the Convex dev deployment. Convex automatically creates the project for you, logs into GitHub, saves the production and deployment URLs, and it's going to do a lot for you with this specific command, and we'll take a look at what. Now, since I'm already logged into GitHub, my experience might be slightly different than yours, but it's still going to prompt you to log into GitHub if you haven't already. So for example, let's just paste this command. And this is where it's going to ask us if we want to create a new project or an existing project. We're going to create a new project, press enter for the defaults. And this is where it's asking us whether we want to use the cloud or local dev deployment. It also has the option to deploy Convex locally, which is really cool. So definitely take a look at that if you are interested in local deployment. But in our case, you're going to go with the cloud deployment. As we do, it's going to create a new Convex project. And it has provisioned our application altogether. If we head over to Convex and head over to the dashboard, again, I have logged in already. So if I don't, and if I hit log out, you have the option here to log in with GitHub, for example. And if you don't have GitHub account, make sure to create one and then log into Convex. It's pretty straightforward. Now, as you can see, this is what was created for us a minute ago. So let's click on that. We have Convex project ready to go. It has automatically just bootstrapped everything. Let's just open this up in a editor. So we can take a look at the code as well as we add more things to our project. So let's just go ahead and do cursor dot. And this opens up the project in my code editor of choice, which is Cursor. And as we do, this is our Convex project ready to go. Now, as you can see, we have the app directory from Next.js because we are using the Next.js app router. But at the same time, we also have this Convex directory that Convex already created for us, which is really awesome. At the same time, if you go to n.local file, it has created a deployment URL as well as a public Convex URL. And this is where the Convex cloud has been hosted for our application. So it has done that automatically for us. Similarly, it has a tsconfig.json, and you can see they have given a handy little guide to work with Convex as well, and which we'll take a look at a bit later. Any type of code that you add inside of Convex, it's automatically going to add that in the generated folder as well. Now, if we head back to our code, to our documentation, here let's just copy this and let's create a sample data for our database. If we copy this, let's go to the terminal and create a new file called as sampledata.json. Touch, it creates a new file. And if we go back here, you can see this file is created for us and we just have to paste the specific JSON. Now let's just copy this command, go to the terminal and paste it again. Now, as we do, it's literally going to import everything that we have in the sample data file and create that automatically and import it in Convex. So for example, it has successfully imported the 3 documents. So if we head over to our database dashboard, and if you click on data, you can see tasks, that is integrate Convex, go for a swim, buy groceries, are all in here, which is really freaking cool. Now let's just go ahead and set up our project. Now in Convex, there are 3 different functions that are extremely important for you to know. One is query, second is mutation, and the third is actions. And we are going to use all of them or most of them in this specific project. So query will allow you to grab data from the table. Since we just created a task table, we would be able to grab data from it. Mutation will allow you to create any mutation, such as create, update, or delete. That is writing data to the database. And action would be any third-party code that you want to execute, then you can just use action for it. So we are going to use query to query our tasks database. So if we head back to the documentation, let's just copy this. And inside the Convex folder, we need to create a new file called as tasks. So this is where we are going to store all the Convex related code. So we can say task.ts and paste it. It's going to use the query from Convex and then query the tasks table. As we do, we need to create a provider, and this provider is responsible to sync the server with the front end. So make sure you get that right. And we are going to create a new file called as convex client provider inside of app convex client provider.tsx and paste this. Now, next step would be in layout. And then let's just copy this code, go to layout and then paste it. Now here it has wrapped our entire application with this provider, which is going to be responsible for syncing the front end with the back end automatically. Now, as you can see, Convex functions are ready, but we never started the server. So let's just go ahead and start our development server here. As we do, our Next.js application is running on localhost 3001. So let's just open that up. As you can see, it's a very simple Next.js application. So now let's just copy this code and go to the page file and update it. Now, if we go to page.tsx, this is exactly the code that we just saw. Let's just go ahead and get rid of everything. Now, as we do, you can see we're using the useQuery hook from Convex that is automatically going to fetch tasks for us. And then we are mapping the tasks. So if we go back here and go to our application, you can see the 3 rows that we have in our Convex database. Integrate Convex, go for a swim, and buy groceries are in fact here. Now let me show you what reactive means. So now if I go here and let's just say instead of buy groceries, I'm going to say I want to buy candy. I just hit enter and save. If I go back here, By Candy is automatically updated, and that's exactly what you mean by reactive. If you update, remove, or add anything in Convex, it's automatically going to show that in the front end because of how beautifully it syncs. And that is because of the Convex provider that we have here. Now let's add Shadcn. Now, if we head to the Shadcn documentation, then they have a specific guide for Next.js. We are going to pick that, and let's just copy this command, and this will set up Shadcn in our project. Let's just go here, stop the server, and paste it. As we do, let's just go with the default options. And now let's just go ahead and add a bunch of components that we are going to need. So you can see over here, we have a alert, accordion, dialog, and a bunch of different components we could use from Shadcn. Let's just go ahead and paste this specific command, which is going to install button, badge, card, dialog, and scroll area. All of these components we are going to use. Let's just press enter, and this is going to install the dependencies for us. So let's just start the server again, go back to cursor, our editor, or whichever editor you use, go back there. And as you can see, all of these files are created for us. So the Shadcn has essentially bootstrapped a bunch of components for us that we could use. The application that we're trying to build looks really pretty. So let's just style it a bit further. So now paste the code that we're going to copy, and let's just close everything and head over to globals or CSS file, which is our global configuration, and paste the code from the cheat sheet below or from the GitHub repo. This specific code sets up some styles for us that we're going to use throughout. So now let's build this page further. As you can see, this page has a header, it has some content here, and then we have these three different columns: project files, file content, and code review. So let's add that. So if we head back to the code, if we go to page.tsx, we don't really need to render the tasks here. We can just paste the code that you can copy from the cheat sheet. So now, as you can see here, we have two functions, and this is, we can call this page, for example. And in this page, we have a header, which is a code review agent header that we have. And then we have given this class name, which we define in globals.css, which just creates a wrapper. We have an h2 and a p tag. So now if we go back here and refresh the page, we just need to install child process. So let's just stop the server, npm install child process, restart the server again and refresh the page. As we do, we have a basic header and also a title as well. But let's take a look at exactly what these two functions are up to. For example, we want to get all the files from Git. For that, we are going to use an exec async function, for example. And again, this comes from child process. We are trying to find the files and exclude specific and exclude .next folder and or node modules, for example, and then process the output to get the file names and return those files. And then whenever anyone tries to select a file, then we can also just select the file over here as well and get the content of that specific file. So for example, if we go ahead and console log data or console log selected file won't lead to anything, but let's just do console log data. Then in that case, let's refresh the page. We head over to the terminal. As you can see, these are all the different files that we have over here. And that's the log that the files is the log that it printed, for example. But the minute we save our code and redo anything inside of our code base, then you can see Convex functions are always listening and redeploying the application. So if you take a look at what Convex functions are, if we head over to the dashboard, over here you will see this fn run functions. If we open that, the functions that we did deploy inside of our Convex folder, for example, if we go to functions, we have this tasks get function. So this has automatically been deployed to Convex, so we can easily execute it, test this code out before doing anything else. So for example, if I hit run function, then you can see it has given me the three items: buy candy, go for a swim, and integrate Convex. So I can also pass arguments here and test a bunch of different functions as we create new functions, AI functions, and so on. So they make the debugging a lot simpler. At the same time, we have the code here, but also the logs as well. So we can see real-time logs as we write more code or debug our application. So every single time, let's say I go back to Convex and go to tasks, and here let's just add a console.log getting tasks. And if you take a look in my terminal, you see getting tasks. It's basically rebundled that function and it's going to redeploy that to Convex, which also then, if I call the function here again, you can see getting tasks is in fact being called here as well. So that log can also appear in the logs sidebar as well. But don't worry if you don't fully understand Next.js or Convex. As we build things further, you will get it. Things will start to click. So now, one last step to build the UI. I'm going to be providing all the components for you so we can focus on creating agentic workflows in our application. So for example, like I mentioned earlier, we have project files, file content, and code review. So these are the files we are going to paste in components. If you go to components, let's just paste those files here. So we have code review, file content, markdown renderer, review button, and review client. We'll take a look at all of these. But for example, if we go to page, this is where we could render review client. So here we can create review client, import it, and this is where we can pass the files, the selected file, and the file. If we go back here and go here, we just need the React syntax highlighter, which is a component that we are using. So let's just stop the server and npm install React syntax highlighter. So now if we go back and refresh the page, you can see exactly what's going on. This is all our code, except that the review button is gonna be forever loading because we haven't necessarily implemented the AI functionality yet. So if you click on each of these files, then you can see that they are being displayed over here. Review is running forever. So let's quickly take a look at what we have done so far. So if you go here, if you go to page, we're rendering something called as the review client component. This takes in files and a selected file. Now, if you take a look at selected file, what we do is we just route to it and retrieve that from the search params from Next.js. Now, if we take a look, we have these params path equals convex/readme. That's exactly what Next.js reads and then passes that to the get selected file function, which retrieves that for us and reviews the content. So this function gets the content of that specific file and returns the content to us. And then we pass that selected file content to review client. And this specific component has a bunch of React state functionality to get the review, to display the dialog whenever we are updating, whenever we get data back from AI. We are using the card component from Shadcn UI and also the scroll area so that our content doesn't go beyond a specific height. Towards the end, we are calling file content and code review, which is literally file content and code review. Now, if we take a look at file content, over here, we are literally just rendering the lines, again rendering another card, and using a syntax highlighter from React syntax highlighter to highlight the lines that we see, that we get back from AI, that, hey, these are the lines where you have some feedback. And lastly, if we go to the code review component, same idea. We have the card, we have scroll area, but except over here, we are rendering the markdown because the content that we get back, the feedback that we get in code review is in markdown format. We're using the markdown renderer component where we are literally just parsing H1, H2. Whenever there is a hash, which means it's H1, whenever it's double hashes, it's H2, and so on. Same idea for everything else. Now, obviously, you could use an actual markdown renderer component from React as well. From NPM, I'm sure that one exists already, but we don't want to spend too much time on that. I've created a simple function here and formatted the markdown for us. Again, you can take the code from here wherever you like. So if you go back to review client, these are the three components that we have that we are rendering on the page. And then we have getting files from Git and getting selected file, which gets the project files and the file content. Now let's focus on the review button. So the review button loading state is going on forever. Let's take a look at exactly what's going on. So if you have to find review button, it will be inside file content. So if we go to file content component, you will see there is a review button over here. So whenever there's a selected file, you want to show review button. When you click on the button, this specific button is pretty simple. It has a loading state. It has a handle review handler, and it's setting loading to true forever. And then if it's loading, we're showing a loader. Otherwise, we're showing the text review file. Now, this is the function we need to use to invoke our AI functionality. But let's take a look at the agent architecture now. So let's take a look at the agent workflow and then build it piece by piece. First step, the client, which is our user, is going to press the review file button, which will then create a new code review thread. This is a trigger to call our Convex action called as create thread. Now, remember I said that Convex has 3 types of functions: query, mutations, and actions. This is going to be an action that we are going to use. And an action means that whenever you want to make a call to a third-party API, third-party code, then you would use an action. Then this specific Convex agent is going to send the code review prompt that say, hey, here's some code, please review it, to the OpenAI model called as text embedding. The OpenAI model is going to use its memory or semantic search, whatever we have asked it to do. It will use the text embedding model, and then this will enable and help the agent to understand the meaning across messages. And then that specific model is going to respond with feedback such as suggestions, best practices, and any sort of bug alerts that it has found. Convex bundles this into a structured result and returns it. The Convex agent then returns the feedback to the client, and the user then sees the code review results in the UI. And all of this is automatically handled. The backend part of it is automatically just handled by Convex. And we'll take a look at how. So first, let's just go ahead and create a thread and create some sort of a way for us to interact with the model. So we are going to use the AI agent with Convex, which is a really powerful platform that you're going to take a look at to build an AI agent. For example, the AI agent has 2 core components. It has an agent component and a workflow component. In this case, each one has its own purpose. A Convex agent is a structured way, or you can think of it like a wrapper that is going to turn OpenAI into a stateful, memory capable agent that you can call anywhere you like, more likely inside of your buttons, for example. It allows you to maintain memory across conversations, which is why we are going to invoke the create thread function. It will automatically store and retrieve message history and so on. And Convex is going to do all of that because it gives us this package to us that maintains all of that. On the other hand, workflow is useful to build these long-running, multi-step background logic. So whenever you want to run multiple AI steps in sequence, you would want to do that. So you can think of it like an async task manager for your agent's brain. You want to run logic over time with retries and so on, then you want to use workflow. In our case, we are going to need agent because when we click a button is when we want things to happen, versus an async task manager that runs in our agent's brain. So if we take a look at the documentation, so let's create our AI agent. Now let's just click on AI agent, and this is a package called as Convex Dev agent that will allow you to automatically store the chat history. Convex is going to manage all of that. You can think of this as an AI agent framework built on top of Convex. So it's going to do all the data manipulation for us. For example, it's going to remember the history, search for messages, generate all the steps necessary. And we're going to walk through this step by step. But if we scroll down, we need to install the package. We go back here, stop the server and paste it. Let's just install that. Then we need to create a new file inside of the Convex folder called convexconfig.ts file. Let's copy this. This is where we are going to define an agent. For example, the config for agent. So let's create a convex.config.ts file and paste that. Now that we have defined this, let's go ahead and configure our agent. So as you can see, we can define an agent. We can pass in whatever context we want. We can pass in the storage options here and start the thread, continue the thread, and expose the agent as a convex action. That's exactly what we are going to do. So let's go ahead and configure our agent. So first, let's just copy all of this, go back here, go to the agent file and paste it. Now we definitely need the AI SDK / OpenAI. For example, if you don't have that already, go back to the terminal and npm install it. So we can say npm install AI SDK / OpenAI. After we do, we just need to define an agent and then declare it. And there's a bunch of options here. So I'm gonna walk you through it step by step. Now over here, let's just create a support agent and then let's call this new agent. And this is where we are going to basically say components.agent. And this comes directly from Convex because this is the components architecture we talked about. We are going to use GPT-4o mini. This is a way cheaper model compared to a lot of other ones. And this is the embedding that we are going to use. And this is literally the steps that we essentially are following based on this diagram. So now, instead of saying you are a helpful assistant, we need to give it a prompt saying that you are a code review assistant, you are acting as a senior software engineer. So copy this prompt from the cheat sheet, and this will give you a really good starting point for a prompt to give constructive feedback and for how your code review agent can give you feedback. Now, the tools section is where you want to pass in any functions that you want AI to have access, your agent should have access to. So let's say if you also want your agent to give documentation help as well, or any links to your documentation, so you could just give it like a search tool, which gives access to the web. So your AI agent can look that up. In our case, we're not going to do any of that because we just want to create a good starting point, and in the future, we'll build on top of that. Now that we have created a agent, we have defined it, we need to export the agent as an action. So for that, we are going to create a support agent step, and we are going to say support agent dot as action. And this way, we are going to say, I want max steps 10. Now imagine if this was a chat, then we just want to limit how many steps can it go to. And I'll show you what it means by that, what we mean by that. And now that we have created these two steps, let's actually create an action to create a new thread for code review. So for example, we need to say create thread, and this is where we need to define a action, which comes from generated server, convex action. And this time we can literally just call create, it takes in an arg and a handler. And this is where we could call whatever we like. So for example, instead of doing something like this, we can just call thread ID is 123. Now we're not using any of the context or anything like that whatsoever. This is where we need to validate with Zod, for example, and like parse the input and the arguments that we get. So for instance, we need to get a prompt, which we can get from, which we are going to get as an argument. And we also need a code as well, which we are also going to get. So now here, let's just pass in the prompt, and the code. The second argument is args. So let's just use that. And we can just say code is going to be args.code and prompt is going to be args.prompt. We're literally passing in whatever just to make sure it works as expected. So now we have created an agent. We have exposed it as an action. We have created an action for creating a thread. So now we can actually invoke it, for example. So now before we connect it to the UI, we could actually test it as well. So here, as you can see, it could not resolve convex helpers. So whenever you install it, whenever you install agents from Convex, you also need to get the convex helpers installed as well. And then it also needs Zod because it automatically does the parsing for us. So we need Zod as well. And then we need another package called as AI. All of these packages are useful to set up everything that we need. Now it's going to again run the Convex functions, redeploy our application. And as you can see, it has installed component agent and the Convex functions are ready. Now over here, I'm gonna restart the server, but that doesn't matter really. We have to go back to the dashboard. And this time, as you can see, we were in the app folder. If I click on it, now we have the agent. In agent, we have a lot of things here, which Convex has automatically added because it's maintaining the context, getting the threads, creating different information, and so on. So now if we go back to agent over here, you can see we have create thread as an option, but we have these bunch of threads. So for example, if we go back here, instead of calling this create thread, let's just call this create code review thread. If we go back here and click on it, let's just refresh the page and you can see Convex functions are deployed. So if we go here and click on functions and in agent, let's just say, then in app, if we go here, you can see agent create review thread is in fact here. But we also have a folder for agent, which Convex uses for maintaining all the context. So for example, if I go back to app and create code review thread, if I say hi and the prompt is hi, I am a prompt, then if you run a function, then you can see it did give us the return. It did return with code prompt and thread ID, which is what we want. So we have created our agent. However, if we go to steps, so if we go to agent over here and you can see the different functions that it has created. If we go to data, it is going to now start creating these embeddings for us that we could use. So if you click on steps, this is empty. This is empty, but these are all the things that it's using for maintaining the context. So none of these tables exist. None of the data exists here because we haven't necessarily created the thread via the support agent, but you can see that how the data has already been structured. So now if we go back here, let's just continue building. So first we need to validate with Zod, but before we do, let's just go ahead and get the thread ID and get the thread and let's call await support agent dot create thread. And this is what we need for the context of the Convex function to basically create a thread with the agent. And now let's just pass in the context over here. Then we need to call generate text function from the thread. So we can say result equals await thread dot generate text. And this specific function will take in the prompt, which is gonna be this value. So this prompt comes from, we just need to get this, we need to get code. So we can say args.code, args.prompt, and return text will be result.text. So we are literally just getting the arguments and passing that directly. We are not validating with Zod yet, but we are going to do that next. So now let's just go ahead and generate it. But we have not necessarily provided the OpenAI key at all. So if we go back here, it still works. But now if we go to app, or let's go back to functions and go to app and create code review thread. This is where we can say the code is going to be text hello and the prompt is going to be review it. And if I hit run action, you can now see it's giving us an error saying that the OpenAI key is missing. So if you haven't already, definitely go ahead and go to OpenAI and make sure you create a key. Now you need to make sure that you log in and then create a key over here. I'll also add this link in the cheat sheet as well for OpenAI. But more importantly, what you need to know is you need to grab the key and then paste it. Now let's assume that I have already done that. So for this, we need to go to m.local file and paste the OpenAI key. But in order for Convex Cloud to have access, because as you can see here, OpenAI key needs to be added in Convex Cloud, then we just need to go to settings, environment variables, and add the OpenAI key over here. Now I'm not gonna exactly do it here because I don't want my key to be stolen. But make sure that you add that here and hit save. Now I just added this key over here with the value, as you can see. So now if I hit run action, my OpenAI code is in fact executing, and now it's gonna give us some data. Now this code is literally nothing, but you can see it has literally given us some data here with text. It seems that the code snippet is provided a simple object literal in JavaScript. While it's quite minimum, it's actually giving us feedback here. Now, obviously, you can improve the prompt to give us more information or less information based on your requirement. But as you can see, it's already doing its work, and our agent has been successfully created. So it is not only giving us feedback based on our code, but we have done a lot here already. So if we go back here, we haven't connected the review file button yet, but we have created the thread. We have passed the code review prompt to OpenAI. We have created a text embedding, and this is giving us all the feedback. So now if we go back to Convex again and go to data, you're going to see exactly what's going on here. So in steps, it has essentially generated all the steps that an AI would take to do that. So for example, if I click on this, this is the content of it. So it has executed that and maintained all of that. So if you go back to the agent AI agent description here, it automatically stores all the history per user, per thread. It's for chat context, for hypertext and vector search is really important. You can opt in to search for messages from other threads. It's going to remember things as well. So all of this is going to give you more power. So for example, in your team, for code reviews, if you have a bunch of teammates making the same mistakes, having that context to the AI is going to be very useful, because over time, your AI is going to remember more, and it's going to point things out as well. In fact, you can start telling it to point out, this is a mistake that was made before, and so on as well, if you like. But anyway, as you can see how Convex is such a great partner for building AI agents, because now it literally remembers all of that. If we go in thread, you can see this is the prompt, and this is the creation time. These are the steps. These are the messages, for example. So you can see review it. Here is the code review, text hello, and this is exactly what we have. We don't have memories because we have not enabled yet, but you can. And this is exactly how it has successfully created an agent. So now let's just go ahead and give it some actual data. So now in agent is where we have created everything. You can remove the imports that you don't need. But now we can also add Zod to validate the input as well. So we just need to create a schema for Zod so that the data that we pass in makes sense. Because right now, as you can see, the input that we passed into the code was pretty minimal. We can also check the number of characters so that only relevant code makes it in, and we actually make an AI call. Otherwise, you're just going to waste your AI credits. So if we say create thread schema, and this is where you can say z.object, import Zod from here. It's going to be a string and code is going to be a string. However, you can literally say you need minimum to be 40 characters and code to be 40 characters. Not the prompt, but I guess the code to be 100 characters or 40 characters or something like that. So we just need to parse it. So here we can say we need prompt, comma, code equals create thread schema dot parse, which is a function which Zod gives it an argument. And this time, instead of args.code, it can literally be code. And instead of args.prompt, it can just be prompt, for example. Now, prompt is something that we are literally just passing it in. We are hard coding it, for example. But code is something that we definitely need. So if we go back here and let's make sure it has deployed, yes. And now if I run it again, it gives us a Zod error saying that it's too small. And that's exactly what I mean. Initially, this was fine, but we don't want to waste our AI credits when we don't really want to. And now it says string must contain at least 50 characters. So if we give it the global.css file that I had created earlier and pasted, it's not formatted right, so now it's not going to. But if we were to give it some sort of a prompt, then that extends longer than this, then it's going to work. So now that we have this, we can connect it with our review button. Alrighty, so we have done a lot already. So what we can do now is go to the review button. So in components, we have the review button. And this is where we are gonna call our agent. So here we can say create review agent equals, and this is, since it's an action, we are going to use action hook from Convex and call API. Again, this comes from generated. This is why, since just because Convex generates a bunch of code, we could just directly invoke it. Agent dot create code review thread. And now that we have declared it, let's use it. So over here, we can just say, let's invoke it. So we can say create code review agent, and the prompt is what we need to tweak here. So we can say, please review this code and provide detailed feedback with line numbers, and then the content. And this time we don't need a thread ID, but we just need the text. So we are setting it, and then set loading to false. But let's also add this in a try catch block, just in case something were to go wrong. So we can just pass it in catch, let's log it, and then finally we can set loading to be false. Alrighty, so now if everything works as expected, then our application would automatically work. So now here, let's just refresh the page because it's stuck in loading forever. We don't want that. And now, as you can see, these are all the changes directly from our file. So if we go to, let's say, the agent file that we created in the Convex folder. So we have tasks agent, and we have the agent.ts file, which is literally our file here. Let's see what suggestions does AI give us. So if we click on review file, and let's also look at the terminal. Over here, it has given us an error saying that it's too small. Oops, that's an old one. And now you can see that we have some feedback from AI already. We have the imports are well organized and clear, so that's good feedback. We can move all the AI SDK stuff together. Alrighty. Then if we click on this one, it says it's clear, but instructions, this would allow you to change the instructions. Okay, some feedback here. If we click on it, the support agent step is not defined but not used in the provided code. Alrighty. So anyway, so it has given us really good feedback that we could implement. It's also asking us to implement some error handling as well. So everything is working as intended. So now, just to make sure everything works as expected, if we were to give it a log here and log it. Now, if we go back here and let's say, let's review this file now. Again, you want to make sure that when you're debugging, you don't press this button all the time because you'll run out of your credits for OpenAI. So you want to definitely be mindful there that only use it for relevant reasons, which is why adding Zod is really handy. So for example, it's saying, explaining the purpose because it's really different, for instance. But if we now look at the terminal, Convex functions are ready. But now if we go here and go to logs, we have the create review thread. And if we go look at data, then we also have this information inside of steps. So now you can see we have more steps, and this is the latest information. Now in steps, we have all of this data, that the feedback that it gave us basically. So our agent has been successfully created, and now we can essentially look at deploying this agent so anyone can use it. Now, I'm going to show you how to deploy it, but I'm actually not going to deploy it because I don't want to run out of OpenAI credits. However, this is a really handy agent, whether this or something else that you want to use to basically build and deploy your agentic workflows. So if there is a process that you want to automate, you could easily do that. So the deployment of our AI agent is literally going to be just like any other deployment we have done in the past. If we go to Vercel, make sure to sign up if you don't have it already. Let's just go ahead and create a new project. You want to make sure you're checking in all the changes that you have to GitHub. So let's just go ahead and do so. So here, let's just stop the server and let's just go ahead and check in all the changes that we have. So for example, if we go here, let's just commit all the changes. So we can say code review agent created and hit commit. And now over here, we have a local Git. So if we go to GitHub, here, let's just go ahead and create a new repository. And let's just go ahead and say AI code. Let's just copy this, paste it, and I'm gonna make it public. Rest everything can be the same. And now since we have an existing repo, let's copy this and press enter. If you refresh the page, you can see that it has been deployed, which is awesome. Now, I'm also gonna add another README file as well. Not this one, but the main README file. I'm gonna add that so you can see exactly how to start the server and so on. But at the same time, what we need to do is our n.local file. I'm gonna copy this and go to Vercel and add it. So as you can see, AI agent code review is here. I'm gonna import it. And this time you wanna just set up the environment variables right here. Now there's one more variable we may need for OpenAI, for example, but let's see if this works. So this is gonna run the production build for Next.js and gonna deploy our application. Let's just hit press deploy. So the deployment of this is literally like any other AI agent that you know, for instance. And if we go back to Convex, and as you can see here, something did not work right. And we have some errors here. So it's saying get all files is not a valid page export. So if we go back to the code and go to page over here, we don't need to export this from page. So let's remove that. Along with the README, we can say make the build happy and hit commit. And now let's just push it. There we go. Let's go back to the project. This is automatically going to kick off the deployment again because I've already pushed a new commit. Hopefully everything works as expected. If you also want to run a test just to see everything works good on the cloud, you can also run a production build locally. And as you can see, it has some errors. So maybe the build might fail again. So now it's saying await isn't allowed in a non-async function. And I think I removed the async by mistake. So let's just add async back. Let's run the build again, just to make sure. Let's add the types for the highlighter, the syntax highlighter. Let's run the build again. The linting has worked and there we go. Our application is ready to go. If you look here, let's add types for React syntax highlighter and commit it. And now let's just go ahead and push the changes. You could push it from here or you can push it locally, same thing. And now let's just go ahead and see what happens. So if we go here, it's building the project. If everything works as expected, we will have a URL we could use to check our application. And there we go. Our application is deployed. If I click on this, everything works as expected. If we go back here and visit the main URL, we have AI agent code review.vercel.app. And we are using commands to check if there are some files locally. So this specific agent is mainly useful whenever you have local files, but on the cloud, you may want to tweak the approach a little bit to maybe get users to upload their files that they want to review and so on. But since this is a local code review agent that every user in your team may need, this specific, even though deployed, you may need to tweak it a little bit based on your scenario. In this case, this is a local code review agent, so it doesn't really matter. But anyway, this is exactly how you can build and deploy a AI code review agent with the latest tech stack, the modern tech stack, such as Next.js, Convex, Tailwind CSS v4, Shadcn UI components, Zod, and TypeScript. And that is a wrap. Please comment below and let me know what is an agent that you would love to create for yourself. What are some tasks which needs that brain power you need agents for? What are some ideas that you may have that you want to create agents for? Definitely comment below and let me know so we can have a really good conversation about it and you can see what ideas other people have as well as they create their own agents. Now, as next steps, if you are interested, then definitely check out this playlist on AI agent series, where I'm going to be creating more videos to help you build and deploy your own AI agents. So definitely check this playlist here. Or you can check out this build and deploy AI Somer SaaS. So you can deploy your own SaaS application with the power of AI. All right, that's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.